Meeting to order and have a roll call.
We'll just go around the room, introduce ourselves.
Bruce, tell us about yourself.
Motion calling partners.
Kishan Prativadi from SAM.
Beverly Marshall from SAM.
Deborah Penrose from Half Bay City?
Or Sam.
From Sam.
Scott Boyd from Montreal Water and Sanitary, and from SAM.
And from Sam.
Glenn Reynolds, Coastside County Water District.
Ken Coverdale, Coastside County Water District.
Alright.
Alright, perfect. Do we have any public comments? Alright.
Plenty of public, but no comment.
Yep, and thank you public for coming. We appreciate you being here. Do we have any old business?
No.
Alright. New business, we've got the approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any changes they need made to the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes. Do we go through that process? Or
Why
do we
not?
do-
It has such...
I wasn't there, so I can't say.
Why don't we accept the minutes?
Just accept them.
Sure, let's accept them.
Accept it, alright.
Alright. And then we go on to the 25% thank you, design task 2.
And so as you were aware, a few months ago we met, we had finished design task 1, and the SAM board had authorized the 25% design with various stopping points for review. While task 2 does not have a subset, we thought it was a good opportunity to come back, give that information to the SAM board, make sure everything was moving along in the direction that was anticipated, and especially since this is where we're starting to get the cost really dialed in. And so we did that presentation and discussion, and that information is included in your packet. I am happy to report that the estimates that we had been working with early on, we were very close to. We believe wholeheartedly that this is a financially viable project, and I will turn it over to Kishan to give a brief analysis of what they've come up with.
Yep, if you'd like to have a short presentation, we can do that, or if you've already gone through the packet material, then we can start the discussion. Would you like to have a presentation?
Sure.
Well, yeah.
We have Reena from SRT who can do the presentation for us. So just start the projector and then we get going.
The dimming of the lights.
Where's the popcorn? So I don't know.
What's the drink this
Do I miss the previews?
We were just getting started on the important part, which is...
Sorry, apologize folks. This is Looney Tunes time for me.
Director Lohman from
How you
Sewer
doing?
Authority Midcoast.
Welcome.
Discussing this with you 25, and what we're doing is a quick PowerPoint to go and then move to the packet. So go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Reena Thomas, I'm project manager with SRT Consultants. We will be reviewing the basis of design report that was submitted to Sewer Authority Midcoast on the recycled water project. The purpose of the basis of design report was to move forward with this preliminary design up to a 25% level, to present the design criteria that would be applicable to the project, further describe the recycled water treatment and conveyance facilities, present an opinion of probable cost both for capital and for annual operations and maintenance, as well as to develop an implementation schedule for the project.
And just to be clear for the public, so that they know why this was developed, was to be able to pin down the opinion of probable cost, sorry, so that we could have a design that met water quality and then put numbers to what the physical fitting it in on the infrastructure and the cost to build it. And so one of the concerns was some of the prior approaches were estimates based on other equipment and infrastructures or other projects like in Southern California. So this gives us what was felt to be more realistic and accurate numbers. Sorry, I just wanted the public to know why we have a 25% design at this stage.
Reviewing the recycled water demand requirements for the project, CCWD provided the required quantity and quality requirements for the customer, which was a peak day demand of 800,000 gallons per day, an average day demand of 550 gallons per day, and a 48% reverse osmosis blend that would provide adequate quality requirements, minimizing TDS and chlorides for best irrigation purposes.
But to be technically correct, COSI didn't specify the blend ratio that was derived from the water quality needed.
Yes,
Thank you.
correct. An overview of the proposed facilities for the recycled water project include a diversion from the secondary effluent clarifiers that would convey by gravity treated secondary effluent to an equalization basin. A secondary effluent equalization basin would allow equal level of treated secondary effluent to be ready for tertiary treatment. That that equalization basin would be constructed from one of the existing primary clarifier, sorry, it's actually a secondary clarifier. One of the existing secondary clarifiers here at the treatment plant would be modified to an equalization basin. And the actual ultrafiltration and reverse osmosis treatment system would be constructed on top of that that equalization basin, and would be a skid-mounted design treatment system that would accommodate 2 treatment trains to provide a redundancy and reliability of the treatment system. The universal skid-mounted treatment systems allow for different membrane suppliers in order to make best accommodation for costs of different membrane modules at different times. It would provide for that 48% reverse osmosis blend and provide additional space for future membrane vessels for potential expansion.
This is just a recap of the technical proposal which we had discussed on January 30th. So.
Additionally, a disposal pipeline would be required for reverse osmosis concentrate that would take the concentrate from the RO system to discharge through the existing effluent pump station. Ultraviolet treatment would be required for disinfection to be compliant with Title 22. In addition, a chlorine disinfection system would apply sodium hypochlorite to provide additional chlorine in the recycled water to prevent regrowth of any bacteria in the storage and distribution system. And recycled water storage would also be all of the treatment processes would be covered under a partially enclosed structure with a fabric cover that would help with sunlight exposure to the treatment processes for operation and maintenance purposes. The recycled water from the following treatment would be stored in would be the current aeration basin number 2 that would be modified to provide recycled water storage. And recycled water distribution would be handled with pumps that would be on top of the recycled water storage basin, and then pumped through a new pipeline that would be constructed under Pilarcitos Creek to connect to the existing OCP facilities at the well field. So the proposed project facilities, as previously presented, are shown here. Of most interest would be the proposed treatment system, universal skid mounted units on top of the effluent or equalization basin, and then all of this would be covered with a structure. And then here's the pipeline leaving the treatment plant, going under Pilarcitos Creek, tying into the existing OCP pipeline. Some of the requirements for the project include regulatory coordination and permitting requirements. Some of the entities that would be required to coordinate with include the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Drinking Water, the San Francisco Regional Quality Control Board, the San Mateo County, the Department of Environmental Health, Coastside County Water District, the City of Half Moon Bay, as well as SAM. Some of the permits that would be required include being compliant with Title 22, which is the recycled water requirements for quality as well as distribution. UV disinfection guidelines, which also present quality requirements for recycled water. Permitting required would be coastal development permits, waste discharge requirements, and water recycling requirements, which are issued by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Other construction-related permits, such as construction stormwater permits, air quality permits, OSHA, and additionally, general environmental compliance for CEQA, with CCWD would be the lead agency for this project. The opinion of probable cost for this project presents a planning level cost estimate in which for this project we received quotes from various equipment suppliers that helped narrow down and verify these costs. We apply a 25% contingency to this cost estimate to account for the planning level of this project. For operation and maintenance assumptions, we took into account the energy requirements, chemicals, replacement costs for membranes and pumps and other ancillary equipment, as well as the labor to operate the project. This table presents the opinion of probable capital costs for the project, generally itemizing the major facilities, including the recycled water conveyance system. The total recycled water treatment and conveyance system capital cost comes to about $5.2 million.
Is the contingency, 25% contingency applied to the 5 million?
It was applied, that's the total including contingency. So prior to contingency, how do I go back?
Sorry.
So the way you've got it on the spreadsheet, it looks like it was applied after the subtotal.
That's correct.
And not including the administrative cost or the recycled water conveyance system, which is another $1 million. So it doesn't, it's 2/3 of the way there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So the contingency was on all of those costs that we received the quotes from, and then we get the total probable construction costs just for the treatment facilities. We added on the what we call soft costs, administrative, legal, planning estimates to that subtotal. And then the recycled water conveyance costs were provided by CCWD in previous technical memorandums. And that's the $1.18 million for the conveyance system.
Which had its own contingency.
Yes, that's from the Kennedy
Yes.
Jenks report.
You already had a contingency
Yeah.
built in.
Right,
But the administrative, legal, planning, design, project, construction management has no contingency.
there's no contingency.
Did you include CEQA in the, legal planning, or? I don't
Yes,
see a
but
cost penciled out, I don't see
Yeah.
CEQA listed out in there.
it's, would be included as part of the planning, in the 30, as part of that 30%.
Okay, so 900,000 for project oversight,
Right.
construction oversight, the legal, the administrative, and CEQA.
And CEQA.
Okay.
In terms of annual operations and maintenance costs, again, we coordinated with equipment suppliers and estimates of, the energy requirements, the chemical requirements, and, applied, the SAM's current PG&E, unit costs for energy, as well as what the equipment suppliers estimated for, replacement requirements. So the total annual O&M project costs for the project come to about $270,000 annually per year.
Yeah, could I ask a question about that? The former, I think, costs presented in the June 2016 report from Sam was a much different number. And there's no breakdown here of the labor cost. There's a breakdown of other things, but nothing to do with labor. And I think this is about $80,000 more than the number that was used a couple months ago. I'm just curious as to 273,000 versus 174. Maybe, you don't have to answer it now, but maybe you could
You could say that.
sometime look at
I don't think the, work that was done the previous time by staff, that was about a year and a half ago.
May of last year.
That was May 20th, yes.
Yeah.
Mid-May, and you're right, the O&M costs which we assumed last time, which we gave last time was only for the energy, the power requirements and the spare parts. It
Right.
did not have the labor in it, and it was coming to about 175,000.
And the labor is an additional operator. It's a fully loaded operator.
And the 175,000 did not include the CCWD O&M costs.
The
Does this include
30
CCWD?
This does.
This does, the pump replacement and others, the recycled water conveyance is all based on,
No, it was actually included in your report. You had a printout of that in your report on page, it's right here. That was part of your report.
this is Kennedy Jenks report.
No, but you included it in your report, a copy of this page. $36,000.
Yeah. So that's in this.
That's all right, I just
Yeah.
was curious if you
Yeah.
could just, I had a hard time reconciling the numbers.
Yeah, the primary difference is the
No labor.
previous did not include, because we wanted to
No
wait
labor.
until we had,
The labor cost.
the 25% design to talk about what would be the impact on staffing.
So a total annualized, so the capital cost was annualized, based upon, various interest rates between 2 and 4%. To come to total annual costs varying between $501,000 to $570,000 per year based upon what interest rate, was available to the agencies.
And the amortization period was 30 years.
30
right?
years, correct, right.
What's the bottom line there?
The bottom line, is showing the cost of water on a dollar per acre foot cost.
Yeah, I don't get that number, I get $1,495 per
We're
acre foot at 2%.
2%. For the
110 million gallons divided by 325,000 gallons per acre foot by 505,000, I would get that number.
I'll verify.
Yeah,
I'll
I think it's
verify
like
what-
3 times that cost.
It might be a difference on what the acre foot per year used. If you're using based upon either the peak or the average, that might be a difference. I'm not-
Well,
I'll double-
the utilization that we submitted was about 110 million gallons a year, not the entire year. And that's the other thing that, you know, we're only using water for about 7.5 months.
Right.
And at 110 million, I think, what's an acre foot? 325,000 gallons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you divide that, you get about 338 acre feet, dividing that into $501,000, it's about $1,498 an acre foot. My math. So maybe you could take a look at that. I mean, I don't come anywhere near that.
I'll show the.
But I'd be happy to pay that.
Yes, of course.
Sign the contract now.
Yeah, as soon as you can draft it. Yeah, I think you're gonna come up with a number close to 1,500 an acre foot.
Sure. But the total cost, the annualized cost, the 501, that doesn't
does not
change.
change.
That is the cost.
Yeah.
No, it's just, for me, it's a comparison to other facilities
Right,
and
sure,
what other
of
golf
course.
courses are paying per acre
Alright.
for recycled water.
Right, but then it would also
Cost
be,
of a fresh one.
it would also be looking at, the conversation we've been having with CCWD, which is just our agreement with CCWD, which is this amount of water at this quality, all of it if we could.
Yeah.
That would be the operating costs for the assumptions that are built into it. Obviously, if we can provide more water, and I don't know what the incremental difference would be, but some of that is relatively hard fixed costs, such as the construction. So really, the only variance would be if we were looking at more water, would be what would be the impact on chemicals and PG&E.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of the other costs are there, no matter how many gallons we're giving you. So, looking at it from the perspective of your ask to look at all the water, not just looking at what you would be looking at, that would be looking at that all year round, assuming we're giving and selling it to
And I
CCWD all
think
year
that's where
round.
that number came from, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that amount
It's-
every day
It's not what our cost would be.
Yes.
It's if you were producing all of it.
to
Which actually gets-
CCWD, and then they do with it as
Well, there
they
have
see
been
fit.
some requests that, you know, what would it cost to produce 100 million
Right.
to an effluent per day?
Right,
And you know, I appreciate the sections in the report dealing with redundancy, like a second pump,
Yep.
other redundancy systems, and maintenance and repair obligations and replacement for that. But I wanna make sure that that's not getting confused with an expansion to move on to a production of 1.2 million or 1.3 million versus, I mean, redundancy is an important thing, and
Yeah.
we want to be able to have redundancy. But I wanna make sure that there was no confusion over redundancy versus the cost to have a facility that could accommodate 1.2 million.
we did not address the additional request at all. So this is strictly looking at the initial assessments, this was not looking at expanding it out. We did not modify the request to SRT to include the additional,
Well, actually, your RO pumping system pumps, according to, I mean, what I'm reading here, is pumping almost 900,000 gallons a day, and we only need 48% blend. But the system is designed to pump almost 900,000 gallons of RO a day.
It has the ability to do that because we do have the ability to, or it would
Is that the
have,
secondary pump?
it would be the
The
secondary.
second train.
Second train, exactly, so when one is down, we wanna be able to still provide the amount, so it has the,
Okay.
yeah, so it truly is redundancy, it's not additional capacity.
Great.
Okay?
thank you.
So at this point, my understanding of where we were in this process about a year ago or so, when we were talking about the, can we, can't we, should we, shouldn't we? It was really a, which number was going to get us there, and there was such a large variance between the sort of the different parties and where they thought the numbers would come out. So happily, these numbers are coming in much closer to the numbers that Kishin and Clemens worked on a year and a half ago. And I think we're at the point now, even though we do have more of the financial feasibility portion to be completed under task 2, I think we have enough information at this point to continue moving on. And certainly the SAM board was very interested in continuing to move on through the rest of the processes for the 25% design. So,
So it,
Okay. I was just gonna say, on February 14th, we sent over a letter to Sam talking about terms that we would be interested in beginning to discuss.
Mhm.
We were kinda hoping it would be agendized on one of the SAM board meetings, but it wasn't. And so we think this is the next step.
Yep.
And I have multiple copies if you wanna pass them around.
Well,
But I
and-
think this is where we are. There's 11 terms that we think we need to agree on. And then we can go to the next stage, we think.
yeah, and actually I have already passed that on to Sam's attorney to start reviewing that and getting that ready for discussion at a board meeting, at
Great.
a SAM board meeting. So it hasn't been sitting idle, it actually has been in our side of the legal process, because obviously before I can bring something to the SAM board, I need to make sure that there aren't any questions or concerns from legal that we would need to resolve sort of among the staff to make sure that, we're at a place that we can then present it to the SAM board.
Yeah, well, I wasn't suggesting that it was sitting dormant.
Yeah, no,
but
it's been worked
we're
on.
just- Yeah, we're just interested in having that
Yep.
proceed.
Mhm.
And then we think we've got something to discuss, something to look at.
I think we're ready to, at least from the review on Sam's part, from the legal and staff
so
perspective.
were there any legal issues that kicked it
There,
out?
there were a few, but I don't think anything that we can't continue to work through.
Good, okay.
Yeah, and since it wasn't like a fully fleshed contract, it was really
No, because
those points, so.
I think our intent was to make sure that before we spent real time on
Mhm.
nailing down nitty-gritty details about what color, the new truck will be,
Right,
that we wanted to see that both parties all agreed on how this was gonna be structured.
Yep.
And so we felt that it was wrong to come in with, uniform pinstriping measurements and say, hey, this is.
That was our intent, to
yeah.
Yeah.
do the preliminary round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save some
Yeah.
money and then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was, we were waiting for, because the sort of the money side of it was sort of the do we or don't we? And so as soon as we got the figures and they were much more within the ballpark of what we were hoping to see, then that was the next item for the agenda, was for me to present to Sam board for discussion your language
Perfect, okay.
with any recommendations from staff.
Okay.
I don't know what that would have looked, I've not seen that.
Oh,
That's all right, but we had given you as well, a sample contract from Daly
Yep.
City, and then I think a page or page and a half bullet point
Mhm.
thing that we thought would be in
Yep.
topics that we would have to discuss
Yep.
between us. And I assume those will ripple kind of into, your arrangement with them as well.
Well, I think the way that it's gonna ripple is that we need to make an arrangement with Sam directly.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
no, I
then we're
understand
gonna
that.
talk to you about our relationship.
Right.
So that's just kinda how we see it. We don't really see it as a one agreement.
Well, I understand that.
Three people.
But when I say to you, we're gonna have to address the issue of what happens if there's a quality breakdown,
Yeah.
Yep.
you presumably are gonna have to talk to them about a
Yeah.
quality breakdown.
In
So-
fact, item,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's, yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
because you work out things with them, and then you and I
Yeah.
sit down, and then you
Yeah.
say, oh, we hadn't raised that issue with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Then we'll go, I'm not interested in negotiating three parties,
Yeah.
my deal's with
Yeah.
you.
That's
Yeah.
right.
But I wanted to make sure that you were aware of our kind of, the topics that we had
Yeah.
raised. So when you sit down with them, that, there's not 10 that are missed, and then we sit down and then we kind of have to start
Yeah.
over again.
Well, I think, certainly we wanna hear what everyone has to say.
Yeah.
Because we're interested in lots of customers, hopefully not just one. So I don't mean to snub you as a customer, because we think you might be a good one. But there may be other people, and so we wanna be sure that our relationship is clear with Sam, because if we don't get the water, we can't sell the water. And then, of course, we wanna hear anything that you're concerned about, because we'll be concerned, just like you will, for 30 years.
Yes, I understand.
So we
that.
wanna be sure it's very well written and documented.
And the quick answer is in our basis of agreement, quality and quantity are definitely, on the list.
And failure to produce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So when do you think that, will go before the SAM board?
Well, I would anticipate that if not on this upcoming one, the one right after that.
Okay, so 2 months then from now?
No, we meet twice a month now.
We meet twice a month.
Oh,
We started doing that, one of the main reasons was because of recycled water, we wanted to make sure we were able to
Okay.
keep it moving, so the
Right.
first meeting would be
May 7th, May 8th.
May 8th,
Okay,
and then
Right.
2 weeks after that.
okay.
So one of those two,
Okay,
just
great.
making sure that we have all the proper language and that the
Okay.
board has an opportunity to review it.
And I don't know if you'd want a representative from Coastside County at that to answer questions, but you know, glad to volunteer up Dave or Mary, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I think this is a great time to have that conversation. As I said, the next sort of half step in the process is the feasibility side of, so this is the cost of it, and then they'll finish up that task. So there'll be another presentation, so as we're working our way through that, we can be working our way through the legal language and having that go back and forth between entities. And then, of course, on the SAM side, it's not officially a SAM project yet, and that's just the fun distinction of our JPA. But we also have to make sure, now that we have the financial cost of it, we have to go back to the 3-member agencies and just make sure that they officially sign off on it as a SAM project. And of course, the biggest component of that is, was it going to be financially feasible? Was it going to pencil out so that SAM's costs were basically covered through the arrangement with CCWD, which I think these figures now show that we are within the range of the costs that we were hoping for, which is obviously for you guys, the one buyer that you have right now, and of course, going forward. And if it meets your measurement compared to where you're getting your water elsewhere.
One thing on the design, are you comfortable with this thing being covered in a tent? Does a tent work for you in the long term? I mean, what's the longevity of a tent?
It still has that same 20 to 30 year lifespan. It has similar facilities have been used over in Carmel as well as at East Bay Mud. They've partially covered facilities similar to what's being proposed.
Yeah, I guess that my concern is to be sure that whatever's being designed or presented has a longevity of at least 30 years. Because I think we're gonna be involved in a contract potentially that's 30 years long, and I don't know if that was part of the replacement cost or how that was calculated in, it didn't look like it. I don't know that it would be that expensive, I have no idea. I don't know those things. But it would be a concern to me that we have predictability for at least the terms of an initial contract.
Beverly, what does a wastewater plant usually budget for longevity of hardware?
You know, it depends. We usually look at the manufacturer's recommendations, so if we're looking at a pump, we look at the manufacturer's recommendation, but then one of the things that we've recently been talking about with our 5-year infrastructure plan that Kishan's been looking at is that because of our exposure out here, that some of our equipment, is it really making it to that useful life? What are the conditions? And so part of what we are looking at is what are the conditions that they're under? The fact that staff went and looked at the Carmel, as you mentioned, the Carmel facility, which is very much a similar component. So that's what we're trying to look at, is really what is the expectation, not just on what the vendors would say, but what is the true experience? And so saying that, you know, East Bay Mud has them, they've had them for a while, I know. And then Carmel has had their facility for a little while. And looking at what is the actual life expectancy versus what the vendor is saying. And so
Right.
we're starting to look at those things and adjusting our anticipated useful life on our equipment. And
Yep.
certainly exposure here is a big issue for us, and as you can see, I mean, none of our stuff is really covered.
Right.
So, any sort of covering at all is going to be an improvement over, our current facilities.
One of the reasons I ask is that, and I totally acknowledge this is your project and you guys get to plan it and run it. I looked at I work on RO systems on, extensively, and the fluxes that are picked out here are, I'll be impressed if you can get the manufacturers to warranty those. And my counsel to you would be if the manufacturer won't warranty them, I wouldn't pay for them. ACWD just lost a $15 million membrane plant. And the forensics of it was that the consultant said it could work, and the manufacturer declined to warranty it at the flex rates, and it failed. And my take is to be conservative, because there's a lot of money on the table. Excellent, I
Yeah.
think,
One question,
yeah.
the cover is solely to protect it from sunlight? There's no need to protect it from wind or rain or mudslide or any of that?
For the most part, it is exposure to sunlight as well as operations. Obviously during wind and rain, it would help cover any personnel that needs to be out there as well.
So it's just covering personnel during wind and rain?
Right, it is rated for wind loads as well as, you know, any other structural requirements. So there are structural design requirements for that.
A lot of my understanding is a lot of the materials, that are utilized in this, deteriorate faster with sun exposure. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
So that's why the UV protection, is so important, because that could disintegrate it more than
Wind or rain or
wind or
both?
rain or, yeah. Different materials have different susceptibility, in my understanding, these are more susceptible to the sunlight.
Is it fair to say that the Kennedy Jenks estimate for the 1,181,000 for the stream crossing and their O&M costs were not independently reviewed by you? You just incorporated those costs?
They were incorporated.
We did not ask them to independently
It's not in the
review.
scope of work at all.
Any other questions? Yeah, please.
I just checked yesterday out on Amazon, and since I'm an Amazon Prime person, I found one that I can get delivered, zero shipping here for like $4.5 million. They just roll it on a truck, so you might wanna consider.
Come by road.
Is it a drone or is it on a truck?
I don't think it was drone, but it was definitely shipping free on Prime.
Yeah.
It could be here in 2 days.
Yeah.
None of the
Yeah.
6-month stuff.
If anyone can do it, Amazon can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Well, we're definitely happy to see that the numbers are coming out in this direction.
Yeah.
I think it moves us that much closer to a viable project.
Yep.
I know that all of you have been sort of watching patiently as Sam's gone through this process, and I think one of the big concerns that one of the member agencies had, City of Half Moon Bay, was if this was going to pencil out and was it truly going to be something that was going to be affordable. And I think now that we have these figures, we can now move back to going to talk with the City of Half Moon Bay and having that discussion, because we have numbers that are more firm than what we had before.
The board, Coastside County Water District Board had a excellent discussion where this was drafted, this basic terms, and the board was extremely supportive of exploring this and pursuing this, and wanted very much, we got a real 2 thumbs up from the board to carry on and move forward, and they are eagerly awaiting the response of Sam to this, so I can say with enthusiasm that we look forward to carrying your response back to the board and discussing it and presenting it to them.
Okay. Well, as for the project management and where we are on the timeline, obviously, in order to satisfy the city of Half Moon Bay, we have to complete the feasibility portion of task 2. So once that's complete, then we can go back to the city of Half Moon Bay and have them revisit the official discussion on if they are in or out of the project. I know, it's so much fun, but both Montera and Granada have expressed commitment to this project, especially to the 25% design.
Yeah.
And then with these figures and with the feasibility, if we have the approval of Half Moon Bay, then we can officially turn it into a recognized SAM project and then start moving to the next steps. But in the meantime, the timeline would be, when would we get the expectation for the next portion of task 2?
I mean, completing the
Mhm.
science, hopeful of finishing it mid-May.
Mid-May. So between now and mid-May, we will have the discussion at the SAM board regarding the terms so that we can start moving that forward. And then maybe by the second meeting in May,
Yes.
we would be able to present the completion of task 2. At that point, we would then be able to refer it back to the city of Half Moon Bay,
May 22nd.
May 22nd.
Okay.
Because that was what they had asked for in order for them to consider it as a project.
Got it, okay.
So,
Thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that, it's confusing.
yes, sometimes for us too. So, either the second meeting in April or the first meeting in May, we should be able to have the term discussion, and then by the second meeting in May, which would be the 22nd, we should be having that next presentation from SRT on the financial feasibility.
And what's the mood from Half Moon Bay on this project?
We haven't had the discussion since we had the conversation at the end of the year where we talked about their concerns with regards to the financial feasibility. We haven't brought it back,
Okay, alright. Okay.
but at least the 2 representatives on the SAM board are behind moving it forward.
Well, I'd actually say 3 out of 4 parties, because Coastal County Water Board said they were very, very supportive of continuing this process.
They have 2 of the board members here if you want to lobby them for a while.
Yeah.
Well, there
So,
might be time for public comment, would you?
Yeah, do you guys have any public
Speak
comment
up
on
to the
this?
general public.
Won't be on YouTube for another 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, if you insist.
I do.
Oh, of course.
In general terms, I have spoken before this, before Sam, that I am very supportive. I was a member of Sierra Club. I really think that as we go forward, recycled water is gonna become more and more important. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I just
Well,
telling
thank
you
you,
my personal.
thank you.
Sure.
Dave, I don't know if you know, but Catherine Carter went down to the big San Diego conference, and they were making beer out of recycled water down and brought it in bottles, and it was a big favorite down.
Very good.
Sam's gonna open a little
Yeah.
pub here on the side.
taste testing, yeah.
Perfect. Alright,
Alright.
well, it sounds like we've kind of got a schedule. You know, one of the things that would be a super help to me is if we had sort of some of the steps out on a web page that we could kind of keep track, cause I find, there's so many parts to this that are moving, that it would be really kind of sweet to be able to sort of see what steps we're processing and what's to be done. I think keeping this process as transparent as possible is gonna be really helpful to the community. My feeling is that it's very important that the community be able to see what we're doing, why we're doing it, and understand what the benefits and liabilities are.
Well, and one of the components that the city of Half Moon Bay requested is an outreach component, an education component, which we will be putting together a budget for that once we get the financial feasibility to then move it forward as a project and also be educating the community on what the project is, who's doing what, and potentially even having an open house where we can invite all of the players involved to talk about the project.
Maybe with beer.
Maybe with beer. Bottled water and do like the old Pepsi, Coca-Cola taste test, can you tell which is,
Perfect.
yeah.
So we've got some near-term action items up through April and May.
Yep.
Could we talk about steps after that, or at least things that we might want to pencil in on that list? I like the idea. I'd like to see that kind of penciled in to include what we know about, you know, just thumbnail sketch of, you know, here's what we think the running the CEQA process will take, right? Well,
Yeah.
Everyone up here has experience with CEQA, right? So I think we could pencil in estimates based on our past experience.
Our
You
friend
guys
that
have done plenty of creek crossings, so you know the drill,
Yeah.
pun intended. So I think that would be really good to put in, not just, you know, through April, May, June, but something that looks out, you know, the 18 months or so.
You know, Scott, actually, even if one just put the average numbers without even, you know, just
Yep.
sort of saying, hey, a CEQA takes this much.
Just even, you know, here's
Yeah.
the last 2 or 3 we did,
Yeah.
here's how long they took,
Yeah.
right?
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
So the first thing the public's gonna ask is,
Yeah.
when are you gonna be done?
Right,
But we've got it in our
So-
heads, let's get it, I love the idea of putting something out there, which is
Yeah.
just the simple bullets
yeah,
with what we know today about,
yeah,
and then some of these things can go in parallel. Some of this turns into the project planning and the Gantt chart and all that, but, you know, I'm expecting to see more of that in the project management plan. But, it's not like we don't know about some of the things that have to happen, and I'd love to get those
CEQA
out
is a
in
good
a
one.
Yep.
checklist form
yeah,
of, hey, you know, hey, average person on the coast side, here's what's happening, and
Yeah.
here's where we are in that.
yeah.
Reduce it to something that starts to reflect the tangible nature of where we're
Yeah.
going.
Is that, would that be something that this group feels, you know, my thought was I'd like to see it hosted, or I should say that differently. I'd like to see it linked to all four parties' sort of webpage, sort of it, and sort of say, hey, so if somebody looks to the water district, they would get a link to, hey, here's a recycled, and if they're looking at Montera or El Granada, that it all links, you know, so that people have access from multiple portals rather than just, and part of it is I want people who click to Montera Sewer and Water see, hey, Montera's working on recycled water, Coastside's working on recycled water. It gives benefit to the whole community, and not to play down the sewer department's energy and efforts on it.
Sam's a coast-wide agency.
They
Covers
are.
the entire coastside.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love the idea. Let's get something up on the Sam site. We can all link to it.
Yep, perfect.
Yeah. Well, and we have our recycled water page is already on the SAM
Oh, good.
website, and it's got everything that's happened.
Oh, great.
So we can add that on there,
It'd
Okay.
And then
be
you
great
can
to
just
have
send a link to it, yeah.
specifically a list of
History, all
Mhm.
Yeah.
reports,
Uh,
everything's out there.
Okay, that's
the
great.
the
I
essential,
apologize, I
here's
didn't
what's
look at it.
next on the playlist.
Yeah, maybe have that first,
Yeah.
have the calendar first,
Yeah.
proposed calendar.
We can do
Well
that,
done.
and then you can just link to our page.
Well, thank you. I apologize, I had not seen
Yep.
that yet on the webpage.
Yeah, and that's where we've been trying to put all of our documents and everything,
Okay.
because people would ask for, do you have a copy of this report that was done 5 years ago? All of that's on there.
Okay. Well, very good.
Everything you wanted to know about salmon recycled water is on there.
Perfect, excellent. Well, very good. I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to the response and charging ahead. Hello, Clemens.
Just back today, right?
Yes, sir.
Yesterday.
very good.
You probably only had about 1,000 emails waiting for you, right?
Beverly, you're gonna send out the response from the review of the basic terms.
Once we have that, yes.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, would this group, that'll be the SAM board that'll do that discussion.
Mhm.
I'm curious whether this committee doesn't really need to meet to review that. It really needs to go from the SAM board to
To the-
Coastside County Water District. And so then they would review it, and then I think at that point, I would anticipate we would then have this committee meet again after that point. Does that make sense, that would be the time we'd be thinking
Well, it
about?
seems to me if the two staffs come to an agreement of the terms,
Mm-hmm.
then the next meeting is gonna be based on lawyers starting to talk about agreements.
Ouch.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, am I missing something?
No, I think
Well, and
you're
I think
right,
the
but-
next point for this group to meet would be after we get the financial feasibility and we give it back to the city of Half Moon Bay and Sam
Oh,
officially
right.
adopts it as a
Perfect.
project.
Okay,
I think that would be the next sort of
okay,
jumping off point.
that's a great idea,
And
okay.
we meet on the second Tuesday of every month, so we only meet once a month.
Mhm.
So if in fact, May 22nd ends up happening and we get some input, then we'll have something that we could agendize and discuss.
Yep.
So the sooner that we hear from you, the more
Yep.
able we'll be to put it into our board meetings and discuss it.
And we certainly will.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be really helpful, and
Okay,
I think a calendar would be useful. And,
yeah, Cal would be great.
we're happy to call a special meeting if it
Yeah.
becomes urgent. It's
Yeah.
not out of the question. But if we fall in that cycle, then we can kind of predict and,
Yeah.
So I think the bullets could be on a monthly basis
Mhm.
going forward and start to hit some targets might be one way to look at it,
Well,
just based on our meetings.
yep, excellent, well done. Anybody have any questions comments before we close?
Nope.
I think
Okay.
it's exciting.
Go team.
Guys,
Yeah.
thanks, good job, everybody, well done. And Clemens,